Welcome to the next exciting lesson of factors influencing agriculture. Just like any other enterprise or just like any other person, they are faced with challenges. So is agriculture, is usually faced by agriculture, where we have different methods of farming, yes, to improve productivity. Different countries have their own different ecological conditions. They may at times be having the same ecological conditions, but the productivity that is coming out of the farms usually differ. And this is because of various factors or various things that make this productivity to go down or even to go high. It may be these factors affect both negatively, and at times they also affect both negatively and positively. We classify these factors or these things that affect agriculture in four major things. That is the biotic factors, where we talk about living organisms. We have the climatic factors, that is the climate, of course, where we talk about things like temperature, rainfall, humidity, soil, and the rest. Then we have human factors. Yes, you and I as humans, we also contribute to the growth or to increase productivity or reduce productivity in our farms. And lastly, we have the edaphic factors, or what referred to as soil factors. And when you hear the word soil, you know it's all about to do with the soil in terms of its fertility and all that. So in my next slide, basically of the lesson today, we are going to be looking at the first factor, which is biotic factors. As I said earlier on, biotic factors are the living organisms that affect agricultural production. They have a lot of influence in both production of livestock or production of crops and rearing of livestock, because when we talk about agriculture, we normally say that agriculture is both livestock and crop farming. So these biotic factors include things like pollinators, pests, predators, pathogens, nitrogen fixing bacteria, decomposers, and lastly we have the parasites. So we are going to look at each and every of these biotic factors and how they affect agriculture, or the economic importance of it, or what role does it do to influence agriculture. It may either influence it positively or negatively. Predators is our first biotic factor. When you hear the word predator, you think of preying, and I guess your mind will take you to the wild where lions attack gazelles, where maybe leopards and cheetahs feed on maybe the newborns of maybe small buffaloes that do not have mothers to take care of them and all that. Yes, this is part of predation, but even in our homes we have a good example of predation, that is the hawks. When they prey or bounce to our chickens, or the eagles, when they bounce on the chicks, immediately the mother goes and maybe is not careful. So all that is what we refer to as predation. And when you look at these two scenarios, is whereby one animal is killing another animal to get food. There is only one person who is benefiting from this relationship, the other one is dead. So a predator is an animal that will kill and feed on another animal. Note the word is kill and feed on this animal. They include examples, like I've said, wild animals, like we have the cheetahs and leopards and lions. We have the wasps, we have the ladybirds, we have the beetles, or what we refer to as the ladybird beetle, and the hawks. They are of economic importance in that some of these predators are beneficial. They reduce the pest population in the farm, and this will reduce the cost of production, as the farmer will not need to go buy uh, pesticides to spray to crops, so that they can be able to control this pest. But when you have these predators, they are going to feed on your pests that are disturbing in the farm, and they're going to make it easy for you as a farmer. And again, they also have the negative side of it, because most of these predators will cause harm to livestock. And when they do that, they make the farmer to go at a loss, especially when wild animals like lions kill and eat our livestock, or especially cattle, for those who practice nomadic pastoralism when they're around the game reserves, or even when maybe the animals or the wild animals stray from the game or from the national parks and get into the villages that live around the area. They go destroying maybe humans, livestock, as well as crops. We also have a good example like the mongoose, when they get into the poultry houses and prey on poultry. This will cause the farmer to lose both the animal, because there'll be no eggs to sell or maybe feed the animals and all that. Our next biotic factor is pollinators. I know when you hear the word pollen, some are allergic, maybe some and others are not allergic. But pollinators, or animals that transfer pollen grains from the anther, that is the male part of a flower, to the stigma, that is the female part of a flower, leading to what referred to as pollination or cross-pollination. They are of great importance. They include animals, or they include organisms such as insects or birds. When you talk about insects, I know the most common thing that comes into your mind is a bee. We know bees are the most common, or the most common types of insect that we see as agent of pollination, though we have other agents of pollination. And they are of good economic importance, because they bring about production of new and improved crop varieties. Because when a bee falls on one flower, when it's collecting nectar, maybe the pollen grain is collected in the pollen baskets, and then when they go to another flower, they leave it there, or they dust or shake it there into that flower. It will lead to transfer of good genes from one flower to another, leading to production of an improved variety than what was there before. We come to our third biotic factor, which is decomposers. If you imagine whereby you'd go everywhere and meet heaps and heaps and heaps and heaps of materials, remains, maybe it plant, may it be animal remains, they're just heaped everywhere you go. Would this not seem like it would be very dirty, or maybe the environment would not be pleasing for people to live in, because people would not even have places to step on? But luckily, that is not possible, because when you walk, you find that even those heaps of plant or animal remains, after some days, they are not there, because there are some small organisms that are working hard to make sure that these things are decomposed or rot, such that they're useful into the soil. And these organisms are the ones we refer to as decomposers. They act on those plant and animal materials to make them rot, so as to release nutrients. They include organisms such as saprophytic bacteria and fungi. not bacteria and fungi. They are of great economic importance in agriculture because they help promote clean environment, because they decompose and help to destroy those materials that can rot, or those we refer to as biodegradable materials. And they also help to increase the soil fertility of our soils, because when those materials they act upon decompose, the materials release the nutrients that they have of them into the soil and help to increase the fertility. And when we have good soil fertility, our crops are able to get enough nutrients for them to thrive and hence increase the crop yield. We have what referred to as pathogens being our next biotic factor. Even in humans, we have pathogens, or rather, it is the other name for disease causing microorganisms. These are small, small, small. When you hear the word micro, means small, such they cannot be seen by our mere naked eye. They are disease causing microorganisms, meaning they cause diseases, and they include some species of fungi. We have some bacteria, because we have both beneficial bacteria and those that are not beneficial, that we're saying some species of fungi and bacteria. We have viruses, and we also have what we refer to as protozoa. Well, when it comes to these pathogens, they are also of great, they also have their own economic importance. When a crop is attacked by a certain disease, the quality of that product goes down. For example, if a farmer is doing kale farming, when we have spots or various leaf spots on the leaves, and we take leaves from kales, so the quality of that sukuma wiki tend to go down, and at the same time they increase the cost of production, because for a farmer to prevent this disease from spreading, so as he can increase the quality, he will have to go look for pesticides. You will have to go to look for fungicides. Maybe you'll have to go to look for other chemicals so as to spray on the crop to reduce this disease. Hence, this making him to increase production, because these chemicals are a bit expensive. Then when you look at the third economic importance, is that some of these microorganisms tend to induce toxic substances on crop produce, making it poisonous for human consumption, especially the aflatoxin. We hear here and then every day in the news that people have taken aflatoxin from maize, or from maybe even maize flour, which was made from maize that had aflatoxin. This is as a result of some fungi species that leads to formation of aflatoxin. So once we consume it, because we are the consumers, it has an effect in our bodies, and then these pathogens can cause death. In case of animals, e.g. where we have anthrax, can cause mass death in cattle if it is not noticed early, and then it can lead to crop failure also, especially where we have diseases like blight in potatoes, or we can also look at the bacterial wilt in tomatoes. So basically those are some of the economic importance of pathogens, and as you can see, most all of them actually are negative. Then we have the nitrogen fixing bacteria, as you hear the word nitrogen and fixing. So it is a useful bacteria that helps to fix nitrogen into the soil for plants to use. But these plants do not take this nitrogen as the gas it is in the atmosphere. No, now that is the work of this bacteria. It will convert the nitrogen that is in the atmosphere to nitrates, now which will be used by the plants for them to grow. Nitrogen is important. It helps in cereals like maize to increase the size of the grain. It also helps vegetative growth of leafy crops such as kales and other crops. And this bacteria is mostly found in leguminous crops. And when we talk about legumes, we have beans, peas, and even some leguminous trees. And they are found in the nodules or the root nodules of these plants. The most common type of nitrogen fixing bacteria is known as the rhizobium bacteria. And as I said earlier, the economic importance of these bacteria is to increase fertility, whereby it increases nitrates into the soil by converting atmospheric nitrogen into nitrates, which is used by plants. We have our next biotic factor, which is parasite. And a parasite is an organism that lives on another organism, which is known as host, deriving food and shelter from it without causing death. So, parasites are different from predators. Don't confuse the two. Predators will kill the animal for food, the whole animal for food. But a parasite will just get into the organism and get food from it and shelter from it, whereby this host will not benefit at all. It is only the parasite that benefits, but the host does not benefit. So do not confuse the two. So basically, most of these parasites affect, you're going to look at those that affect livestock. And those that affect livestock are divided into two: those that live inside and those that live outside. Those that live inside, they are known as endoparasites, while those that live outside are known as ectoparasite. Inside, endoparasite; outside, ectoparasite. And examples of these endoparasites include tapeworm, roundworms, liver flukes, and all other types of worms, because they live inside. You cannot see them using your naked eye. They live inside the animal. Well, examples of those that live outside include ticks, kids, mites, and you also have the sisafly. Parasites are of various economic importance, where one, we see it lowers the quality of products such as the hides and skin, where if your animals were highly infested by kids for the sheep, the quality of wool that you get will be low. Then they increase the cost of production due to expensive control measures. And when we talk about expensive control measures, this is where we talk about in terms of buying the acaricides to control these ectoparasites, or the antihelminthes to control the endoparasite, making production costly. Then we see that they transmit diseases. These parasites may be transmitters, transmitting diseases from a healthy, an infested animal to a healthy animal, whereby we give examples of a fly, which transmit a disease known as trypanosomiasis, or what referred to as nagana. When you look at ectoparasites again, they suck blood excessively from the animals, making the animals to suffer from anemia. And if this they're not controlled early, the sucking of blood may be too much such that it may lead to death of the animal. And then again, we see that for the endoparasite, when they are too much or when their animals are heavily infested, they tend to obstruct the intestine. They obstruct the intestine, causing them to be emaciated because they do not eat. The little food that they get into the system is taken by these parasites, such that the animal does not have enough nutrients to maintain its own body. Again, parasites affect how livestock is distributed in various parts of the country, because you find that where in areas where the area is infested highly with parasites, livestock cannot survive, or livestock are not kept in that area. While those areas that are free or they have little infestation of a parasite, livestock keeping is suitable in those areas. Those are two examples of parasite, where we have an example. The first diagram, we have an example of an endoparasite, that is liver fluke, and the second picture we have an example of an ectoparasite, which is tick. We look at the last biotic factor, which is pests, and we know pests are causing a major destruction in our crop fields, making farmers to lose the morale of doing or venturing into agriculture, making them to just do it just so as to get maybe food for the family, but not putting their heart into it. You've heard lately, we've had the desert locusts, and they're examples of pests which are destroying, or they're destroying huge hectares and hectares of land, taking away the food that people had labored for. We also had a season where we had the fall armyworms destroying our maize, making the farmer not to get any harvest and making to have a food shortage in our country. So those are just some of the pests that have been causing havoc. And the most destructive organism, and the insects are the largest group which form the major categories of pests. They have their own share of importance, where they lower the quality of the produce, because when they feed on part or the whole plant, the plant itself, when it gets to maturity stage, it will fetch low prices in the market because it will not have of that good quality. And then again, some pests, when they're feeding on these plants, they injure the part where they were feeding. If they were feeding on the leaves, they will injure some of these parts of the leaves, exposing these crops again to secondary infections. And if it will not suffer from secondary infection, the rotting of the plant may take place, leading to the farmer suffering losses. Then they also transmit crop diseases. Just like parasites transmit diseases, also pests transmit diseases. Because as they feed on the sap of the plant that they're feeding on, they may leave the disease-causing microorganism that they took from another plant in this plant, causing the plant to suffer from that disease. And we have an example of aphids in vegetables. Then the other economic importance is that they lower the crop yields. When they eat up the produce in the field, they lower the crop yields. E.g., fall armyworms, they destroy the crops by eating up their leaves. Then we have that they increase the cost of production, as measures used to control these pests are chemical applications, which are very, very expensive. If you want to eradicate the bollworms, if you want to eradicate the white flies, you have to go to look for certain chemical, and you find that these chemicals are a bit expensive. So that is why we are saying that they increase the cost of production. And in our next slide, we're going to look at some examples. There are so many types of pests, but I'm going to show you pictures of a few or three pests, namely the cabbage sawfly, the American bollworm, and the cutworm. Those are the three pictures. That is the bollworm. We have the first picture, that is the cabbage sawfly. We have the second of the American bollworm attacking some tomatoes they are sowing in the farm. And then we have the cutworm, and as from the name, it cuts the stem, the cutworm. And that brings us to the end of this lesson. Basically, biotic factors are organisms that influence both positively and negatively. As you've seen, we have 7 of them, where we have the 4 P's, that is the pests, the parasites, the pollinators, and the pathogens. And then we have the decomposers, nitrogen fixing bacteria, and then we have the last one. And then from these 7 biotic factors, we have those that are useful, and we have those that they have a negative impact. We have seen that those that have a negative impact include the pests have a negative impact. We've seen the parasites also have a negative impact, and we have also seen that the pathogens also have a negative impact. When it comes to those that have a positive impact, we see we have the nitrogen fixing bacteria, we have the decomposers, as well as having the pollinators. When it comes to the predators, they fall on both sides because they will help us positively by reducing the pest population in the farm, such that you don't have to go buying chemicals, and then negatively where they may lead to destruction of the animals, leading to the loss of the farmer. Thank you for listening. Thank you for watching. See you as you're going to look at the next as you're going to look at the next human factor, which is going as the next factors influencing agriculture, which is the human factor. Thank you.